The frantic energy of downtown Chicago traffic had made Ethan a full 30 minutes late. He jogged the last block to the upscale bistro, his heart hammering against his ribs not just from the exertion but from the sheer anxiety of a first-time blind date. He took a deep breath before pushing open the heavy oak door. Inside, a man looked up from his table at the sound. He possessed a face with sharp, defined features and an intense gaze, an air of authority that was both captivating and slightly intimidating. For a moment, Ethan's mind went blank, processing two thoughts in rapid succession. First, that this man was incredibly handsome. Second, that his mother must have called in a serious favor to find someone this impressive. The man introduced himself simply as Caleb. Ethan, flustered, offered his own name in return. Caleb rose and handed him a linen napkin. Ethan was instructed to wipe the sweat from his brow, and as he did, he caught his own harried reflection in the window. A fresh wave of heat rose to his cheeks. He murmured his thanks, his mind already concluding that this was a disaster. After they were seated, Caleb asked about his dietary restrictions before handling the ordering with practiced efficiency. Once the waiter departed, a thick silence fell over the table. Ethan focused on the condensation beating on his water glass, acutely aware of Caleb's calm, steady presence across from him. Blind dates were supposed to be awkward, but Ethan hadn't anticipated being too paralyzed to even start the small talk. His gaze flickered up and met Caleb's directly. Ethan quickly looked away, his posture shrinking. It was Caleb who broke the silence, his voice even. He observed that Ethan seemed nervous. Ethan admitted that it was his first time doing this. Caleb then asked, with startling directness, if he had any intention of getting married. The question caught Ethan off guard. He managed to confirm that he did, if he found the right person. Feeling that his answer sounded too eager, he quickly added that he hoped to get to know someone first. Caleb nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He asked if they could exchange contact information. As Ethan pulled out his phone, ready to scan a code, a notification popped up. Caleb had sent him something. Ethan looked up, puzzled. Caleb's expression was serene as he explained that Ethan could start getting to know him now. To Caleb's prompting, Ethan opened the link. It led to a comprehensive professional bio, a detailed chronicle of achievements that read more like a resume for a Fortune 500 CEO than a dating profile. It was an overwhelming display of success. This felt less like a blind date and more like a high-stakes job interview. He mumbled that he hadn't brought his own resume but could send it later. Caleb assured him that wasn't necessary. Ethan scanned the document. Ivy League education, a self-made tech empire, a portfolio of successful ventures. The man was a powerhouse. When Ethan finally lifted his eyes from the screen, Caleb was watching him, his expression unreadable. Caleb asked if Ethan was satisfied. Ethan could only nod emphatically. Caleb's focus sharpened as he posed his next question, asking if Ethan would, then marry him. Ethan forgot how to respond. He could only stare, dumbfounded. The man seemed utterly serious. The arrival of their appetizers, delivered by a timely waiter, broke the spell. Finding his voice, Ethan asked if he could have some time to think about it. Caleb inquired if the duration of their dinner would be sufficient. Ethan protested that it felt rushed for a decision as monumental as marriage. Caleb disagreed, stating simply that Ethan was a suitable match. The sheer bluntness sent another rush of heat to Ethan's face, making his words tumble out. He stammered that Caleb was very impressive and that he would give the offer serious consideration. A corner of Caleb's mouth turned up in a faint, knowing smile. Ethan ducked his head, focusing intently on his plate. During the meal, Ethan multitasked, discreetly texting Leo, a college kid who worked part-time at his bakery. Leo, who attended Northwestern, replied almost instantly, his message filled with excitement. He knew Caleb. The man's name was on a plaque in the Alumni Hall of Fame. He was a legend at the university. With this information, Ethan's racing mind began to cool. Something still felt off. He typed another question, asking if Caleb had any strange habits or hidden issues. Leo's response was indignant. He said he went to the same school as Caleb, he didn't share a bed with him, and demanded Ethan not insult his idol, who he insisted was a paragon of virtue. Abandoning the chat, Ethan was torn. The meal passed in a blur of exquisite food he barely tasted. He was so lost in thought that he didn't quite hear Caleb ask him something. Panicked, his heart leaped into his throat and he blurted out that they could give it a try. Caleb paused for a fraction of a second, then a genuine smile spread across his face as he agreed. Only then did Ethan realize Caleb had merely been asking how he liked the seared scallops. Mortified, he wished he could sink through the floor. It was, without a doubt, the most reckless thing he had ever done. Agreeing to a relationship with a man he'd known for less than an hour. As their car moved through the glittering city lights, a belated sense of caution surfaced. Ethan asked Caleb where they were going. Caleb replied that they were heading to his place. Ethan's eyes widened, his hand tightening on the seatbelt as a primal urge to flee took hold. He tried to reason his way out of it, suggesting he should go home and change into something more appropriate, and lamenting that he hadn't brought a gift. Caleb seemed to understand his panic. He clarified that he was taking Ethan to see their future home, explaining that cohabitation was the fastest way to build a connection. After that, he continued they could arrange for their parents to meet and set a date. Ethan relaxed slightly, realizing it wasn't a prelude to meeting his parents tonight. But the mention of cohabitation sent a new jolt through him. His phone buzzed. It was his mother, her voice a mix of confusion and frustration. She asked why he had stood up his date, explaining that the man had waited for 2 hours before calling her. Before Ethan could process this, his mother hung up. He stared at his phone, then at Caleb, unable to comprehend what had just happened. A moment later, Caleb's own phone began to ring. He exchanged a look with Ethan before answering. A woman's voice on the other end asked if he was still at the restaurant, apologizing profusely. His actual date had a last-minute emergency, and in her rush to meet friends, she had forgotten to inform him. The car, now pulled over to the side of the road, was deathly silent. They compared their information, a dawning, terrible clarity settling in the heavy silence. He had gone to the wrong table. He had stood up his actual date. His brand-new relationship, not even an hour old, was built on a foundation of pure chance and error. Bracing himself, Ethan offered a sincere apology. He said it was his mistake and suggested they should probably just break up. Caleb refused without a moment's hesitation. The single word "no" hung in the air. Ethan's heart beat faster. He had to confirm, asking if Caleb still wanted to be his boyfriend. Caleb didn't answer directly, instead asking if Ethan wanted to break up. Ethan shook his head immediately. He did not. The car started moving again, continuing its journey to Caleb's home. A sprawling penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking panorama of the Chicago skyline. Caleb gave him a tour, ending at the master bedroom. He gestured to a massive walk-in closet, stating that he would have half of it cleared out by the next day for Ethan's things. Ethan felt a shy warmth spread through him. He asked quietly if they would be sleeping together. Caleb's response was a simple question of what else they would be doing. In a last-ditch effort, Ethan mentioned he wasn't a very still sleeper. Caleb advised him to work on his self-control. Before Ethan left, Caleb had him register his fingerprint and set a passcode for the front door. As soon as it was done, Caleb mentioned that he had a business trip coming up and hoped Ethan could move in as soon as possible to get settled. Ethan agreed, promising to pack and be back in a couple of days. Caleb seemed satisfied with this. In reality, procrastination took hold. The intention to pack was there, but then a video featuring Leo at the bakery went viral. Business exploded. Ethan was completely swamped, his days a whirlwind of mixing dough and piping frosting, his nights collapsing into exhausted sleep. The move was utterly forgotten. One evening, after closing, the bell on the shop door chimed. Leo began to politely inform the customer that they were closed for the day. But the man's voice was firm, stating he was looking for someone. The sound was deeply familiar. Ethan looked up from cleaning a countertop to see Caleb walking toward him. He was holding a gift bag from a designer brand. Peace offering, Ethan supposed. He accepted it with a mumbled thank you. Caleb asked when he would be done for the night, adding that he would wait to take him home. Before Ethan could answer, Leo, his eyes shining with hero worship, jumped in and insisted on handling the rest of the closing duties so Ethan could leave. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He made the introductions. When it came to defining his relationship with Caleb, he faltered, a strange heat creeping up his neck. Caleb filled the silence without missing a beat, stating that he was Ethan's boyfriend. Leo stared for a few seconds, his gaze shifting to Ethan with a newfound, profound respect. Ethan cleared his throat and announced he was leaving. On the way to the penthouse, an uneasy feeling settled over Ethan. He knew he had forgotten something important. The moment they stepped inside, Caleb's tone became serious. He stated, not asked, that Ethan had not moved in. Ethan's heart sank. He tried to explain about the sudden rush at the shop, his voice getting smaller and smaller as he spoke until he was looking at the floor, mumbling an apology for having forgotten. He promised to move in the very next day. A hand landed on his head, ruffling his hair in a gentle, forgiving gesture. Ethan looked up, surprised. The atmosphere in the room shifted, growing charged and intimate. As Caleb leaned down, Ethan instinctively closed his eyes, his heart pounding. He felt a soft touch on his eyebrow and heard Caleb murmur that he had a bit of lint there. Ethan's eyes flew open, a wave of embarrassment washing over him. He stammered that he should probably go home and get some rest. Caleb informed him that there were spare toiletries and he could borrow some of his clothes. 3 minutes later, Ethan stood in the lavish marble bathroom, his face burning as he held up a pair of brand new boxer briefs that were several sizes too large for him. The size was impressive. He sighed. The pajama pants were equally large, and he had to hold them up with one hand to keep them from falling. His plan was simple: get to the bed and feign sleep. He peeked out. The coast was clear. He tiptoed out of the bathroom, but after only 2 steps, Caleb walked back into the room. Startled, Ethan's hand slipped, and the pajama pants pooled around his ankles. The ill-fitting boxer briefs, precariously perched on his hip bones, slid down just enough to be scandalous. He froze, every muscle tensed, and forced a dry laugh. He stammered that they were too big, then quickly clarified he meant the pants. Caleb just hummed in response, his Adam's apple bobbing. Ethan bent down quickly to pull up the pants, but in his haste, he dislodged the underwear completely. A cool draft hit his skin. He didn't dare look up. In his peripheral vision, he saw Caleb's long legs approaching, each step landing like a drumbeat against his sensitive nerves. His back hit the wall. Caleb's voice was a low, husky whisper. He asked if it was okay. Ethan's mind was a complete blank. Caleb's voice grew deeper as he leaned in, his lips brushing against Ethan's. The soft touch was like a spark that ignited something between them. They were both adults. He saw the clear evidence of Caleb's arousal, and his own voice was shaky as he pointed it out. He reminded Caleb that he was inexperienced and a little scared. He asked Caleb to be gentle. Caleb scooped him up and carried him back toward the bathroom, his mouth murmuring promises against Ethan's skin. The next morning, Ethan woke up in a haze. He saw Caleb by the closet, fastening a tie. When Caleb noticed he was awake, his gaze darkened for a moment. He asked if Ethan needed to go to the shop today. Ethan shook his head slightly, his whole body aching. He complained softly about how forceful Caleb had been the night before. Caleb paused, the knot in his throat working. He promised to be more mindful next time, then added that Ethan had bled a little and he had bought some ointment for him. Ethan froze, his entire body flushing with heat. He pulled the covers over his head, his voice muffled as he insisted he could do it himself. Caleb didn't press the issue, though his expression held a hint of disappointment. Once Caleb was dressed, he smoothed down Ethan's messy hair, said he was leaving, and was gone. Ethan sent a text to Leo, giving him the day off. He finally dragged himself out of bed in the afternoon and went home to pack. The 2 months of living with Caleb were everything he could have wanted in a partner. Caleb was considerate and gentle outside of the bedroom. Inside it, however, he was a different person. Dominant and possessive, always apologizing profusely afterward but never changing his ways. One morning, Ethan's phone rang. Still exhausted from the previous night, he buried his head under the pillow, trying to ignore it. A moment later, the ringing stopped. A hand reached over and pulled the blanket down from his face. When he finally woke up and padded into the living room, he was surprised to see Caleb, who should have been at work. Then his gaze shifted, and he saw his mother sitting on the sofa. A cold dread washed over him. He had forgotten to tell her about Caleb. His mother's tone was sharp as she told him to come over. He quickly ducked into the bathroom to freshen up before sitting meekly on the armchair, feeling like a child awaiting judgment. She barely spared him a glance, her attention focused entirely on Caleb, whom she called by his first name with unnerving familiarity. When it was time for lunch, she shooed Ethan into the kitchen to cook. Caleb followed him in to help. Ethan looked at him mournfully, teasingly asking why his mother's new favorite son was in here instead of out there with her. Caleb laughed, replying that he needed to stay with his boyfriend. Ethan, satisfied, directed him to wash vegetables. He asked when his mother had arrived. Caleb explained that she had called Ethan's phone that morning and he had answered it. Ethan asked if she had given him a hard time. Caleb said she hadn't, then paused before asking why Ethan hadn't told her about them. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He weakly offered the excuse that he forgot, asking if Caleb believed him. Caleb's tone was neutral as he replied that it didn't matter. He had told his own parents about Ethan the day after they met. The words were like a small, sharp knife to the heart. Ethan sidled up next to him. When Caleb glanced down, Ethan looked over his shoulder to check on his mother, then stood on his toes and planted a quick kiss on Caleb's cheek. He whispered that he hadn't meant to keep it a secret and begged him not to be angry. Caleb's expression remained unreadable. Realizing Caleb was not easily placated, Ethan turned back to his task, his mind racing. Caleb eventually sighed, took the vegetables from him, and said he would do it. As Ethan watched his strong, capable back, an impulse seized him. He called Caleb's name. Caleb stopped, and Ethan said they should get married. He wanted to introduce Caleb to everyone he knew. Caleb froze for a few seconds, then grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him into a fierce hug, his voice thick as he said yes. As Ethan hugged him back, he saw his mother's gaze land on them from the living room. She watched them for a long moment before looking away. Lunch was a resounding success. Later, as Ethan walked his mother to her car, the lecture he had been expecting finally came. She admonished him for keeping such a big secret, asking if he thought of her as a stranger. She said if she hadn't shown up, he might have kept it hidden forever. Ethan apologized, explaining that everything had happened so fast. His mother, her anger spent, softened. She admitted that Caleb was a good man, stable, respectful, and clearly very fond of her son. Ethan seized the opportunity, asking if she approved of the marriage. She gave him a cool look, reminding him that he hadn't asked for her opinion before. The wedding planning was taken over by Caleb and his mother. Ethan's suggestion for a simple, low-key affair was immediately shot down by both of them. He understood his mother's reasoning, but not Caleb's. Caleb's explanation came later, a direct hit that left Ethan speechless. He said that Ethan deserved the very best of everything. One afternoon, his phone rang. He answered it groggily, still half asleep. It was Caleb. Before Caleb could speak, Ethan started complaining, his voice thick with sleep, reminding Caleb that he had begged him to stop last night, but he had just kept going. A cough came from the other end of the line. Caleb informed him that he was in a meeting. Ethan's brain short-circuited. He whispered furiously, asking why Caleb hadn't said so earlier. He could hear the amusement in Caleb's voice as he changed the subject, explaining that he'd left a file at home and needed Ethan to bring it to him. Following Caleb's directions, Ethan found the file and drove to the office. The address led him to a massive corporate tower that seemed to be the heart of a sprawling tech campus. He parked and messaged Caleb, but got no reply. Deciding to be proactive, he went to the front desk and asked for Caleb. The receptionist's polite smile tightened slightly. She asked if he had an appointment. When he said no, but that he was delivering a document, she asked for his name. As he waited, a voice called his name. He turned to see a familiar face he couldn't quite place. The man introduced himself as Dylan, a college classmate. Recognition dawned, and Ethan smiled, remarking on the coincidence. Dylan feigned hurt, complaining that the corporate world had clearly worn Ethan down if he couldn't even recognize an old friend. Ethan laughed it off. Dylan asked if he worked there now, expressing surprise that he hadn't ended up at the Chong Corporation. Ethan, confused, explained he was just visiting and asked why he would work there. Dylan stated it as if it were obvious because he was Alex Chang's boyfriend. Ethan felt a headache coming on. He started to explain that they weren't really in that kind of relationship, but Dylan leaned in conspiratorially, asking if they had broken up and wanting all the details. A voice cut through their conversation. It was Caleb, standing just a step away, his eyes fixed on them. Dylan's demeanor shifted instantly, his posture becoming deferential as he greeted his boss. Ethan handed the file to Caleb. Caleb thanked him. Then Ethan turned back to Dylan to suggest they exchange numbers. Dylan, glancing nervously at Caleb, slapped his forehead and claimed he'd forgotten his phone. He made a hasty retreat. Ethan turned back to Caleb, who simply asked if he wanted to stay for lunch. Ethan nodded and instinctively reached for his hand, then remembered where they were and pulled back. But Caleb was faster, capturing his hand and lacing their fingers together so tightly there was no space between them. Ethan could feel the stares and hear the whispered speculation from nearby employees. He squeezed Caleb's hand, a silent plea to let go. Caleb's grip only tightened. Ethan whispered that this was his workplace and it was inappropriate. Caleb didn't even look at him. his voice loud enough for those nearby to hear as he asked what was wrong with holding his boyfriend's hand. Inside Caleb's private office, the questions began. Caleb wanted to know why Ethan hadn't told his old classmate that he was in a relationship. Ethan explained that he had been about to when Caleb arrived. Caleb instructed him to make sure he clarified it the next time he saw Dylan. He then left for another meeting, leaving Ethan with snacks provided by his assistant. Full and drowsy from the afternoon sun streaming through the panoramic window, Ethan drifted off on the plush sofa. He was vaguely aware of a familiar figure approaching, and without thinking, he held out his arms. Strong arms slid under him, lifting him effortlessly. Ethan's legs wrapped around Caleb's waist by instinct. He felt soft kisses on his face and buried his head in Caleb's chest, trying to push him away playfully. Caleb carried him to a small, hidden nap room adjoining the office. The feeling of being laid on the bed and the sudden, hard pressure against him shocked Ethan fully awake. He stared up at Caleb, calling him a beast. He quickly unwrapped himself and pulled a blanket up to his chin, watching him warily. The desire in Caleb's eyes was unmistakable. He proceeded to live up to the name Ethan had just called him. Later, exhausted, Ethan declared that he was never coming to Caleb's office again. He heard the click of a belt buckle and pulled the blanket over his head to hide his blushing face. Caleb restored his cool, elegant demeanor, pulling the blanket down just enough to see Ethan's face. He promised he wouldn't touch him again. A little later, Caleb took a call and stepped out. When Ethan finally woke again, it was dark outside. He found Caleb standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. Ethan asked if he was finished with work. Caleb turned, his expression deep and unreadable in the shadows. He asked when Ethan's birthday was. Ethan replied that it was in a week. The week leading up to his birthday was strange. Caleb was tense, a constant, tightly coiled energy about him that Ethan couldn't decipher. When Ethan asked what he wanted for his birthday, he just said he wanted to spend it with Caleb. The day of, he got a message from Alex, his old college friend. "Honey, I have a surprise for you." He looked out the window of his bakery to see Alex standing on the sidewalk, smiling and waving next to a suitcase. Ethan rushed out, overjoyed, and Alex pulled him into a huge hug, claiming he had come all this way just because he missed him. Ethan playfully called him a liar, asking where his long-term boyfriend, Sam, was. Alex's cheerful facade crumbled. He admitted they had fought. He said Sam didn't love him anymore. His eyes welled up with tears, and soon he was sobbing in Ethan's arms, wailing that Sam wanted to break up with him. After calming him down slightly, Alex declared he needed a drink. Ethan offered to buy some, but Alex gestured to his suitcase, which turned out to be full of expensive liquor. For the next 2 hours, Alex drank, cried, and cursed Sam's name. Ethan secretly messaged Sam, who replied frantically, asking where Alex was. He was in another state but promised he was getting on the next flight. Ethan glanced at the time and his heart sank. He was late for his own birthday dinner with Caleb. Alex was still drinking, inconsolable. As a last resort, Ethan looked toward the door and said Sam's name. Alex immediately sat up straight, wiped his mouth, and insisted he hadn't had a single drop of alcohol. When he realized he'd been tricked, he looked at Ethan with utter betrayal. Ethan showed him the phone, proving Sam really was on his way. He sent a quick message to Caleb, explaining he was bringing a friend home. When they arrived, the penthouse was completely dark. A wave of disappointment washed over Ethan. He flipped on the light and jumped. Caleb was sitting on the living room sofa, staring at him with an unnerving intensity. Before Caleb could speak, Alex groaned from behind him that he was going to be sick. Ethan rushed him to the bathroom, leaving Caleb sitting in stony silence. The man was clearly furious. When Ethan came out, ready to explain, Alex called out from the bathroom, asking for help with a shower. Ethan was about to go back when Caleb's voice stopped him, cold and hard. He forbade him from going. From the bathroom, Alex's plaintive voice called for his honey. Caleb repeated his command. Ethan was trapped between them. Caleb stood and advanced on him, his eyes dark with an emotion Ethan couldn't name. He told Ethan he couldn't betray their relationship. Ethan pointed at himself, completely baffled, and was about to defend himself when Alex's voice, slurred with drunken bravado, echoed from the bathroom. He was shouting that he was going to break up with Sam and find a bunch of hot college guys, one for every day of the week. Then he added with a giggle, "Honey, I'll get one for you and one for me." Understanding crashed down on Ethan. He asked Caleb, hesitantly, if he thought he and Alex were together. Caleb's silence was his answer. Ethan rushed to explain their history, the fake relationship in college to ward off unwanted suitors, a secret they had kept for years. He pulled up his chat history with Sam, showing Caleb the frantic messages. Caleb's posture visibly relaxed. He apologized, his tone sincere. He had thought. Ethan's heart softened completely. He told him it was okay, that they were just friends. Caleb pointed out that Alex called him honey. Ethan couldn't help but laugh, explaining it was an old habit. He then added that if Caleb wanted, he could call him that too. A slow smile spread across Caleb's face. "Okay, honey." The moment was interrupted by Alex, who was now leaning against the doorframe, glaring at them with the raw misery of a scorned lover. He began his drunken tirade again, this time pointing at Ethan and promising him a share of the young men he planned to acquire. Ethan lunged forward and clamped a hand over Alex's mouth, shooting a panicked look at Caleb, whose eyes had narrowed. He asked Ethan if he also liked college students. Ethan shook his head so vigorously he felt dizzy. After finally getting Alex settled in a guest room, Ethan returned to the living room to find a cake with a single candle waiting on the coffee table. The clock showed it was just past midnight. Caleb lit the candle and wished him a happy birthday. Ethan made a wish and blew it out. As they ate, he told Caleb the full story of his and Alex's fake college romance. Caleb listened intently. When Ethan finished, Caleb asked why he had never told him. He confessed that he had accidentally seen a text from Alex on Ethan's phone days ago, which had planted the seed of misunderstanding and caused his tense mood all week. Ethan teased him, asking if he was jealous. Caleb's reply was serious. He was very invested in Ethan. Gathering his courage, Ethan finally asked the question that had lingered since their first meeting: why Caleb had been in such a hurry to lock things down. Caleb moved closer, his gaze unwavering. It was love at first sight. Do you believe in that? The confession hung in the air, intimate and warm. Ethan leaned in and kissed him. He was too. The kiss deepened, and soon Ethan found himself pinned beneath Caleb on the sofa. He managed to gasp that Sam would be arriving soon. Caleb groaned in frustration, muttering about how annoying that couple was. Sam arrived at 4 in the morning, looking exhausted but relieved. He thanked Ethan profusely before going to collect his sleeping, tear-stained boyfriend. When he was gone, Ethan curled up next to Caleb in bed, feeling safe and warm. A year later, they were married on a small island in Hawaii. The ceremony was intimate, attended only by their families and closest friends. Under a clear blue sky, with the scent of tropical flowers in the air, Ethan looked into Caleb's eyes and said, "I do." The day after the wedding, Ethan slipped on a pair of shorts, ready for a walk on the beach. Caleb emerged from his study and offered to join him. Before they left, Caleb reached out and meticulously buttoned Ethan's open shirt all the way to the top, stating gravely that the wind was strong outside. Ethan just laughed and let him. They walked hand in hand along the shore, the brilliant sun glinting off the identical wedding bands on their fingers.